It's been a year since we got married. Time to say goodbye to this life.
I really can't stand it anymore. It's been too long. I seriously can't stand breathing the same air as Sarah anymore.
Hearing Kevin and Emma talking in the living room, I suddenly caught my breath. Their conversation was something I couldn't just ignore. I quietly held my breath, making sure not to be noticed, and listened to their conversation through the gap in the door leading to the living room, recording it on my smartphone.
My company's truck is huge. Getting hit by that would be fatal. Everything's ready. Just need the hitman to do his part.
That's so wicked. Well, it's not like there was ever any love from the start. As long as we can live comfortably, that's all that matters.
Their conversation was chilling, far from what you'd expect from family talk. I felt my whole body bristle with fear and ran away from there as fast as I could. Staying in that house was no longer safe. Trembling uncontrollably, I desperately thought about what to do next. My name is Sarah. I'm 35 and work in public relations at a real estate company. I got a job in real estate because my father, a wealthy landlord, owned a lot of properties and wanted me to inherit them someday, so he hoped I'd gain some knowledge for that. Thanks to some of Dad's advice, I own several lands and apartments, generating a passive income from them. I ended up in public relations on my manager's suggestion. Throughout my 20s, I was always in sales, but got a rotation into PR. Both sales and PR are fulfilling, and I spent my days working from dawn till late. The reason I even considered marriage was advice over drinks from that same manager.
Sarah, you are perfect at your job. Now all you need is a kind-hearted husband.
That's a compliance violation.
Drunk, my manager had suggested it, but was promptly scolded by a colleague and fell silent. However, I wasn't too upset. He was right, after all. I did desire marriage. But could I use the lack of opportunity as an excuse? I'll find myself a wonderful husband. Just you watch. I was quite drunk myself and replied spiritedly, never imagining that within a month I'd meet my fiancé. I met Kevin at the bar where I had talked about marriage with my manager. Just 3 days after going out with colleagues, I found myself back in the same bar. It was a bar close to our office, a regular spot for most of my colleagues who frequented it often. Actually, I like drinking alone. So there I was, sipping beer alone on a Monday evening, despite it being the start of the week. The chances of running into other members on a Monday night were slim. It was a strategic move.
Are you alone? Mind if I join?
The man who spoke sat next to me at the counter, in a casual tone. What? Oh, sure. I was honestly quite surprised. I've never been approached by a man I didn't know in my entire life. The reason is probably my looks. Frankly, I'm not what anyone would call cute. I have a round face, and each facial feature is small, all of which are inferiority complexes for me. Yet, at 35, I was surprised and also pleased when a man spoke to me for the first time in a bar. Most women would probably decline such an invitation, but aided by the alcohol, I immediately nodded.
Thanks. I'm Kevin. I'm a long-haul trucker. Nice to meet you.
He casually asked for a handshake. I thought, what a cheerful man, and shook his hand. I'm Sarah. I work at a real estate company. Nice to meet you. I might have come off a bit stiff. But Kevin didn't seem to mind and started talking about himself. He asked about my personal life too, and before I knew it, I was going along with Kevin's pace. I even ended up telling him, which wasn't necessary, that my father is a wealthy man. While we were talking, I found out that Kevin and I were the same age. I was so happy that I ended up sharing things I normally wouldn't with someone I just met. I'm embarrassed to say I've never been in a relationship with a man. At first, Kevin was taken aback by my words, but then he casually said, "Then, why not go out with me?" And I was utterly astonished. What? But
Why not? Think of it as practice.
Even thinking about it now, it was a strange turn of events. But at that moment, I was completely drunk. Then, yes, I replied, and before I knew it, I was smiling. And so our relationship began, just one day after we met. Surprisingly, my relationship with Kevin went smoothly, and about a month after we met, Kevin proposed. I was shocked, but both of us being 35, and with Kevin saying it was better sooner rather than later, I simply accepted his proposal. I reported this to my manager.
What? Sarah? You are getting married.
He seemed almost ready to collapse with surprise. Yes, but I'll keep working as usual.
Is that so? Well, congratulations.
I wonder if it's just my imagination that my manager seemed a bit deflated. Once my marriage to Kevin was accepted by those around us, it really felt like married life with Kevin was right around the corner. And just 2 weeks after he proposed, we filed our marriage registration. To me, who had a whirlwind marriage, my parents were bewildered but happy. Kevin might look frivolous and speak casually, but he is actually friendly and affable, making him quick to warm up to new people. That's probably why my parents liked Kevin's character so much. After getting married, I moved into Kevin's home. Kevin's place was a small apartment, and honestly, it felt cramped and smaller than the apartment where I used to live alone.
Come on in.
Thank you. Since I was moving into Kevin's place, I entered his home hesitantly. Then, I heard footsteps from deeper inside the apartment, and my body jolted in surprise. At first, I thought he might have a large dog, but it turned out to be a human girl's voice.
Is this woman my new mom? Wow.
Emma, stop that reaction when you first meet someone.
The girl named Emma seemed to be a middle or high school student. However, her hair was permed into tight curls, and she wore flashy makeup, looking like a throwback to the glam girl fashion style, glaring at me as I stood there in shock.
Oh, sorry. It's just that.
I could somewhat guess what Emma wanted to say. It was obvious that she was disappointed seeing a not-so-cute woman in her mid-30s coming into the house. No, more importantly, what was this all about? I looked at Kevin, seeking an explanation.
Well, she's my daughter from a previous marriage. She's 16 now. I was married once when I was 18, but I didn't tell you. But whatever, right? The one I love now is you.
Marriage, the stepdaughter. I had no idea. The shock I felt then was indescribable. It might be classified as marriage fraud, but having just gotten married and facing this obstacle, my mind was only filled with confusion.
Well, I'm going out to hang with friends.
Watching Emma leave the room swiftly left me to ponder alone.
Sarah, make some dinner.
But Kevin didn't give me a chance to think, and just like that, I started this distorted married life. Even though finding out Kevin had a daughter was completely unexpected, after calming down a bit, it didn't seem all that bad. At 35, I might not have my own children, and since Emma is already a high school student, it's not like I have to raise her. I tried to think about it in as positive a light as possible. However, our married life faced other issues. About 3 months into our marriage, I started to wonder about the lack of intimacy at night. Come to think of it, we hadn't been intimate even once during our dating period. Though if we had been married for years, it might be understandable, but we were newlyweds. It was honestly lonely that Kevin didn't seem to desire me. Kevin, being a long-distance trucker, had varying hours at home. But we didn't always have different days off, and on his day shifts, we'd normally go to sleep in the same bed at night. Compared to other couples, our schedules might not align perfectly, but the complete absence of marital intimacy made me wonder if I lacked appeal. After much worry, I tried to subtly initiate intimacy, but he just brushed it off with "Sorry, I'm too tired today. Maybe another time." As someone with no experience in relationships, I couldn't bring myself to be more demanding with Kevin and went to sleep feeling frustrated. Well, I could have endured the lack of intimacy, but other family issues soon followed. The cause was none other than Emma. As I mentioned initially, Emma had a very flashy appearance, and her friends were just as flamboyant. I was often called by Emma's school because she and her friends were behaving poorly. The teachers, knowing I was a stepmother, showed some sympathy, but Emma looked indifferent even as I got scolded on her behalf. Why me? I was truly shocked. One day, knowing that Emma was bringing friends home gave me a bad feeling. When I got home from work on a Friday night, there was Emma with 3 friends in the living room, sitting cross-legged, snacking on junk food, and sipping sodas. Of course, they were the usual flashy group. That alone would have been fine, but there were crumbs scattered on the floor and juice spilled on the rug, leaving stains. That rug was a recent purchase. I really loved it and thought it was perfect for starting our married life, so I had spent a lot of time picking it out at the store. This really made me angry, and as I forced a smile and said hello, a stream of scolding poured out despite my efforts to remain composed. "If you spill snacks and juice, could you please clean it up? You all are the same ones who got scolded at school recently, right? You better start changing your attitudes, or you're going to face tough times as adults." As an adult, I felt it was my duty to teach these kids some manners. With that intent, I spoke in what I believed to be a gentle tone, trying to admonish them kindly. Despite my words, none of Emma's friends showed any signs of remorse on their faces. Instead, they looked at me with curious gazes and whispered among themselves,
Is this that Sarah?
You? Didn't we see her last time, when we got called to the office?
Oh, really? We've been called in so many times I forgot.
That's hilarious. Seriously though, Sarah is like an old lady, and not pretty at all. Why did Emma's dad choose her?
Their conversation was unbearable to hear. I was particularly shocked by the comments made by the third girl. I'm aware that I'm not particularly attractive, but such comments shouldn't come from my daughter's friends. However, getting upset about her words would be immature, so I stayed silent.
But you can't even respond, you know it's true.
Even Emma threw mocking words at me, and I couldn't stand being there any longer, so I decided to leave the house. Meanwhile, Emma and her friends were clapping their hands and laughing crudely. Why do I have to feel ousted from my own home? Cursing this unfair fate, I wandered aimlessly outside until Emma's friends left for the day. This way of life continued for about a year. I have not had any marital relations with Kevin since we got married. Emma still refuses to acknowledge me as her mother, always giving me cold looks. The number of times I was called into the school increased, and the teachers, exasperated, seemed to forget I was a stepmother, raising their voices. "We really need you to discipline her at home." I'm sure the teachers were tired of repeatedly dealing with similar issues. Every time I was called about Emma, I couldn't help but think, why is this happening to me? This was my daily life, but soon my marriage would end in an unexpected way. It was a certain Wednesday evening. I had left the house after telling Emma that I might come home late due to backlog from the previous day. Kevin was also going to be absent that evening due to work. However, when I got to the office, the stack of documents that should have been piled up on my desk was neatly gone. At that moment, my manager came over to me.
Sarah, you seem tired lately, so I finished them up for you yesterday.
He told me, "Thank you very much." As I said that, he smiled and returned to his desk. Honestly, I thought I would be working late today, so this kindness from my manager was very much appreciated. Because of this, I didn't have to work overtime today, and in fact, I had no other tasks, so I could go home a bit earlier than usual. Thinking it was rare to be home early, I decided to make Kevin's favorite stewed hamburgers for dinner. As I arrived home with this in mind, I thought, when I noticed something odd. Kevin's shoes, who was supposed to be at work, were at the entrance. Wondering if he had unexpectedly taken the day off, I was about to open the living room door when I heard Kevin and Emma talking.
It's been a year since we got married. Time to say goodbye to this life.
Seriously, it's been too long. Give me a break already. I can't stand sharing the same air with Sarah anymore.
Hearing Kevin and Emma's voices from the living room, I suddenly caught my breath. Goodbye to this life. What was that supposed to mean? Their conversation was something I couldn't just ignore. I quietly held my breath, making sure not to be noticed, and listened to their conversation through the gap in the door leading to the living room, recording it on my smartphone.
My company's truck is huge. Getting hit by that would be fatal. Everything is ready, just need the hitman to do his part.
That's so wicked. Well, it's not like there was ever any love from the start. As long as we can live comfortably, that's all that matters.
And to think, she's so naive. Got hooked by a guy like me at the bar, and spills everything when flattered a bit.
It's hilarious how naive Sarah is, but thanks to that, we found out she has quite a fortune. Really, she's such an easy mark.
Emma's laughter was chilling, her words not something you'd expect from a high schooler. I felt my whole body bristle with fear, and I fled from there as fast as I could. The content of their conversation was horrifying. Staying in that house was no longer safe. If their conversation was true, I would be attacked by the hitman Kevin had arranged. Shaking uncontrollably, I desperately thought about my next steps. After leaving home, I went to the city office to get a divorce form. Fortunately, it was still open. I filled out the divorce papers at a diner and then waited at an internet cafe until it was time for them to go to sleep. I spent that time trembling and feeling anxious. When the night grew late, I returned home. I quietly placed the divorce papers on the living room table. I would never return to this house again. With that resolution, I took only the essentials and went back to my parents' home. It was already past their bedtime, so I quietly went to my room and fell asleep. The next morning, my parents noticed I was there.
Well, you're back.
They were obviously surprised.
What happened all of a sudden? How is Kevin?
My father looked puzzled. Actually, I played the recording of last night's conversation between Kevin and Emma for my parents. As they listened to their conversation, their expressions darkened rapidly. After hearing everything, my father suggested in a low voice,
Let's go to the police.
"Yes, the police." This was a serious criminal plan, and it made sense to report it. Honestly, since yesterday, I hadn't been able to think clearly, not even considering such an obvious course of action. I had only thought to use the recording if there was trouble during the divorce process. "We'll go to the police." Convinced by my father's words, I got ready to go to the police station. Just then, my smartphone started ringing loudly. Startled by the sudden loud noise, I trembled. Since I rarely use my phone for anything other than work, I was drawn to the ringing and stared intently at the smartphone screen. Kevin. The caller was none other than Kevin. He must have woken up and found the divorce papers on the table. It was clear why he was calling. I glanced at my parents, asking, "What should I do?"
There's no need to answer. You don't need to listen to anything that man has to say.
My father said firmly, but the call ended and then rang again. We waited patiently for the ringing to stop, but Kevin was persistent. The calls kept coming every minute, every 10 minutes, every 5 minutes. This isn't getting us anywhere. Maybe it's best to talk to him once and get him to agree to the divorce. Finally, my parents nodded in agreement to my words. Eager to return to a peaceful daily life as soon as possible, I pressed the call button on my phone.
Hey Sarah, where are you right now?
As I answered the phone, Kevin's shouting came through as expected, and I instinctively pulled the phone away from my ear. I turned on the speakerphone so my parents could hear and placed the smartphone between us. "Where? I'm at work, of course." I lied as convincingly as I could, trying to keep my voice steady.
What? At work? Then what's this divorce paper all about?
I came back late last night and just left the divorce papers on the table before going to bed.
We haven't been fighting much. Or have I cheated? So why is divorce suddenly on the table?
I could feel Kevin's irritation in every word. Indeed, as Kevin said, we weren't a couple that fought excessively, nor was there any infidelity. It's natural he would find it strange to be asked for a divorce without any apparent reason. But Kevin was the mastermind behind a plot with Emma to take my life. He must know about the terrible way Emma treats me. Yet, he has the audacity to act cluelessly about why I would want a divorce. I looked at my parents. I could tell they wanted to say something, probably suggesting I reveal what was on the voice recorder. I had thought about just going straight to the police without saying anything, but with Kevin pushing me this much, I had no choice. It was time to let him know that I was aware of everything. With my heart pounding, I desperately held back my nervousness and decided to tell Kevin about what happened since yesterday evening. "Let me clear up a misunderstanding for you. I know what you and Em are planning to do."
What are you talking about?
Kevin feigned ignorance. but his voice trembled slightly. With this tone, I might be able to get a confession out of him. Feeling like a detective interrogating a suspect, I continued. I said I came home late last night, but that was a lie. Actually, I finished work early yesterday and got home around 5:30. You can imagine my surprise when I got there. Kevin's shoes, which were supposed to be at work from the evening, were at the entrance. I might have believed it was just a shift in work hours, but that wasn't really the case, was it? Slowly, with the relentless determination of a predator cornering its prey, I methodically confirmed each fact.
So what? And why are you lying about coming home early yesterday? Why do you have to lie about everything?
I could hear Kevin's voice getting more desperate over the phone. With a sense of triumph inside, I crafted my next words carefully. Really? By now, you should have figured it out. But if you really can't imagine why, let me spell it out for you. Yesterday evening, I overheard you and Emma discussing your plan to kill me and take my inheritance.
What?
It felt like Kevin's breathing stopped, and the air around us froze. Kevin probably never dreamed that I had overheard his conversation with Emma yesterday. But the reality was that I had heard everything.
What's going on? There's no way I'd think of something like that, right? Sarah, you must be misunderstanding something. Sure, I didn't have work yesterday and talked with Emma in the living room in the evening, but we were just discussing her school stuff. Sarah, haven't you been really tired lately? There's no way I would ever think about harming you. I love you so much.
It seemed Kevin had decided to play dumb, boldly lying in an attempt to convince me. But of course, I wasn't falling for it. I don't want to hear insincere declarations of I love you. It seems you won't believe what I'm saying. So I'll send you the recording via message right now. Listen to it. I recorded your conversation from yesterday.
What?
This must have taken Kevin by surprise, as I could hear his shock over the phone. I quickly sent the infamous recording to Kevin. Kevin was silent for a while, perhaps listening to the recording. However, occasionally I could hear Kevin muttering things like gosh and why, which made me smirk, knowing I had successfully confronted him with the evidence. See, you understand now. That's the evidence. I'm planning to go to the police now. This is clearly a criminal plan. I'm going to tell them that my husband is plotting against my life, so be prepared. After Kevin finished listening to the audio data, I told him this in a matter-of-fact tone.
Wait a minute. Police, what are you thinking? Even if this date is real, I haven't actually done anything yet. Look, let's start over. I won't think about weird stuff anymore. I'll talk to Emma too. She has always been rude to you, right? That's what you're upset about. I'll make her move out. But I don't have the money for her to live alone. Damn. I was planning to finally say goodbye to this poor life with your inheritance.
Despite Kevin's apparent admission of his guilt, he didn't seem inclined to apologize. If there was real love, he would have acted with my best interests at heart. Ultimately, all Kevin and Emma cared about was money, and I couldn't see a future where our marriage would lead to happiness. I had completely written him off. While looking into my parents' eyes, I took a deep breath. Kevin, who do you think you are? After deceiving me, you suggest we start over and sulk when things don't go your way. How corrupt can you be? And Emma, you're there too, right? Not going to school and plotting all this. I can't forgive you either. Yes. I had also noticed breathing on the phone that I suspected was Emma's.
What now?
Sure enough, Emma's voice came through the phone, and my parents gasped. I understand you can't accept me as your mother, but I can't condone you bad-mouthing me to your friends and helping your father with his criminal plans. I'm planning to report you to the police too. Be prepared.
What? Why should I go to the police? It's Dad's fault for being poor.
What did you say?
As the two began to argue like a family, I sighed in disbelief. Enough! Both of you, we're going to the police. By the way, my parents are here too, so there are plenty of witnesses. Now I'll leave the signing and submission of the divorce papers to you. I said this more decisively than usual, and Kevin protested. Hey, wait a minute.
If you're going to the police, at least apologize here.
Yeah. You ruined our future plans.
Kevin and Emma said something utterly unbelievable. What? I couldn't help but let that slip out. It seems these two really aren't very bright. Finally, I let the anger welling up inside me burst out. Why should I apologize to you? You should be the ones apologizing. Never involve me again. Goodbye. Without waiting for a response from Kevin and Emma, I hung up the phone on my own terms this time. Phew, that was the right thing to do, wasn't it?
Yeah, you did well.
I can't believe Kevin turned out to be such a terrible person. Anyway, I'm just glad you're safe.
Both parents let out sighs of relief. None of us thought that my marriage would fall apart in just 1 year. But obviously, I couldn't have continued to live happily with someone who was plotting to take my life. It's a sad outcome, but it's better than the worst-case scenario could have been. I've decided to think that way now. Kevin filed the divorce papers that same day, sending me a message saying, "We're divorced." The morning's phone call must have really hit him hard. Of course, I had a lawyer demand alimony from him. Later on, he even sent a pleading message saying, "Now that we're divorced, can we just forget about the police, please?" But I ignored all his messages and delivered the recording to the police the next day. Kevin and Emma were quickly arrested for their criminal plans and are probably being questioned by the police now. Kevin had mentioned using his company's truck to carry out his plan, but that also became known to his company. He had even discussed the infamous plan over the phone at work, and one of his colleagues who overheard it reported it to his supervisor. I'm appalled by Kevin's reckless behavior, but I am relieved that justice is served as a consequence of bad deeds. Kevin was fired from his job, of course. He intended to steal my inheritance and live a wealthy life, but instead, he's lost his job and now has to pay me alimony, forcing him into an even poorer life than before. If he hadn't been so greedy, he could have led a peaceful life. I hope he enjoys living in his own personal hell now. As for Emma, given her bad conduct at school, she was expelled considering her involvement in this incident. I think that's a fitting response. It might be inconvenient for Emma without a mother, but she's a high school student and old enough to understand right from wrong. This should be a good lesson for her, that one's bad actions will eventually be punished. I hope Emma reflects deeply while she is with the police. As for me, I've decided to stay with my parents for a while. I told my manager at work that I had divorced within a year.
Really? Maybe it's my fault for pushing you into marriage. Sorry about that. Oh, but maybe this means I still have a chance.
I was surprised when he said that so casually. But at the same time, I was truly flattered to discover that my manager felt that way about me. I had been thinking that I might take a break from marriage for a while, but I've known my manager for a long time and he's a kind and considerate person, especially towards his subordinates. Feeling that I could take my time to consider the future with him, I accepted his invitation for the weekend. I don't know what the future holds, but it's exciting precisely because it's unknown, and I'm grateful to my manager for reminding me of that.